Something is shifting in the case of Lilly and Jack Sullivan. After nearly 10 months of silence, dead ends, and agonizing uncertainty, the walls are finally beginning to crack. New information is surfacing. Witnesses are stepping forward. And what they're revealing is threatening to shatter everything the public thought they knew about the night two small children simply ceased to exist. These aren't keyboard detectives spinning theories from their living rooms. These are individuals who were physically present inside that home, who witnessed the conversations, the behaviors, and the moments that played out in the hours before 6-year-old Lilly and 4-year-old Jack vanished without a trace from their rural Nova Scotia property on May the 2nd, 2025. What they're saying raises a question so disturbing it's difficult to sit with. What if these children never wandered into the woods at all? The stepfather, Daniel Martell, has broken his months-long silence with explosive allegations aimed directly at the children's mother, Malehya Brooks-Murray. Close friends and family members are now contradicting the official version of events. And perhaps most haunting of all, emerging theories suggest Lilly and Jack may not be lost. They may be hidden, deliberately concealed by people who either believe they're protecting them or are desperately covering up something catastrophic that happened on that spring morning. Before we go any further into these jaw-dropping new developments, make sure you subscribe to True Crime Vault right now and slam that notification bell. This case is moving fast. New details are breaking constantly, and we have been on the ground with this story from day one. You cannot afford to miss what's coming. Hit that like button, and drop your thoughts in the comments as we go. Do you believe Lilly and Jack are still alive? Do you think someone is hiding them? Let's dig into this together. The disappearance itself seemed almost mundane at first glance. Two young children, playing in a fenced backyard in Lansdowne Station, a quiet, Blinken-Umisic community nestled in Pictou County, Nova Scotia. Their mother Malehya and stepfather Daniel were inside the house with baby Meadow. Daniel's mother Janie was out back in a trailer on the property. A perfectly ordinary spring morning. Until it wasn't. At approximately 8:59 in the morning, Janie reported hearing the unmistakable sounds of children at play. Laughter floating from the direction of the swing set. 40 minutes later, those sounds were replaced by silence. Not a scream, not a cry for help, just silence. When Malehya realized the children weren't inside and couldn't be spotted anywhere in the yard, she dialed 911 at 9:41 a.m., just one single minute after discovering them missing. That lightning-fast call would later prompt investigators and armchair sleuths alike to ask a deeply uncomfortable question. Was that the reaction of a mother in blind panic, or of someone who already knew what she was going to find? The response from authorities was nothing short of extraordinary. More than 100 volunteers flooded the area within hours. RCMP detachments from across the region converged on Lansdowne Station. Search and rescue professionals deployed with state-of-the-art equipment. Helicopters armed with thermal imaging cameras carved systematic grid patterns above the dense tree line. Drones buzzed into terrain that was too treacherous for boots on the ground. Cadaver dogs, trained specifically to detect the scent of human remains, swept the landscape with methodical precision, but the terrain they were searching was absolutely brutal. Dense woodland where visibility collapses to just a few meters once you leave a trail. Massive fallen timber creating obstacle courses that force even experienced adults to crawl and scramble. Steep, rocky embankments where a single misstep means a dangerous fall. And made temperatures that still hovered dangerously around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to trigger hypothermia in a small child within hours. This wasn't a gentle forest where curious kids might safely explore. This was punishing wilderness that humbled trained search professionals. Over 12,000 hours of search time were ultimately logged. And yet, despite that staggering, almost incomprehensible effort, investigators found almost nothing. What they did find, however, would raise far more questions than it answered and point toward a possibility that would redefine this case entirely. A fragment of pink blanket that was among the first tangible pieces of evidence recovered, discovered along a pipeline trail roughly 1 kilometer from the family home. This pipeline corridor, a clear path cut through otherwise impenetrable forest where infrastructure had been laid down, represented one of the few routes through that wilderness that small children could plausibly navigate on their own feet. Once the blanket fragment was confirmed as belonging to Lilly, It became the investigation's first real breadcrumb. But it also instantly raised a question that no one could definitively answer. Did Lilly carry that blanket down that trail herself, or did someone else bring it there? Child-sized boot prints were discovered in the soft mud along the same pipeline trail. Two distinct sets, suggesting two small children had walked through that area. One set bore tread markings that appeared to match Lilly's boots, a UK size 29, the equivalent of a Canadian children's size 11. Investigators documented everything meticulously: photographs, precise measurements, plaster casts made for future comparison. And yet, police never released a definitive public confirmation that those prints belonged to Lilly and Jack. Investigators are notoriously cautious about staking early claims on physical evidence. Get it wrong at the start, and you can contaminate an entire case. What remained unclear was whether those prints proved the children walked that trail under their own power, or whether they had been carried part way and only set down briefly. Beyond those two items, the search returned almost nothing. No additional clothing. No personal effects definitively linked to either child. No signs of violence. No blood evidence. No indication of any struggle in the wilderness. For a search operation of that extraordinary scale, operating over that much terrain, the absence of findings was itself deeply unsettling. Children 4 and 6 years old simply do not vanish without leaving traces, especially not through terrain that challenging. Their small bodies, their limited endurance, the brutal conditions, all of it made the idea of them navigating kilometers of that wilderness almost physically impossible. But it was a detail about the scent tracking dogs has gone largely underreported in public discussions, yet maybe the single most revealing piece of evidence in this entire case. Multiple sources connected to the investigation have disclosed that when professional tracking dogs, animals bred and trained specifically to follow, humans sent across long distances in difficult conditions, were brought to the property to track Lilly and Jack, something extraordinary happened. The dogs successfully picked up the children's scent from belongings brought out of the house. They followed that scent trail away from a backyard. They moved toward the front of the property. And then, at the end of the driveway, precisely where the property meets the road, the trail went completely cold. The dogs did not continue into the tree line on either side of the road. They did not follow a path along the roadside in either direction. They stopped right at the spot where a vehicle would pull up to receive passengers. The implications of that single detail are enormous. When scent tracking dogs lose a trail abruptly at a fixed location, it typically signals one of two explanations. Either the scent was destroyed by environmental factors, heavy rain washing away, for example, and there was no such rain that morning, or the individual being tracked entered a vehicle at that precise point. If the scent trail genuinely ended at the driveway, these children did not wander into the woods. They got into a vehicle. Whether they climbed in willingly because they recognized the driver, or whether they were placed inside by someone else, that remains a terrifying open question at the heart of this investigation. This transforms everything. It reframes the entire nature of what happened on May the 2nd. It shifts the question from where did these children wander to who was driving that vehicle, and where did they go? In the weeks and months that followed, the key figures in this case retreated into silence, creating a vacuum that the internet filled with fury, conspiracy, and accusation. But now, nearly 10 months on, that silence is finally breaking, and what's emerging from it may change the course of this investigation forever. For months after Lilly and Jack vanished, the people who should have had the most to say said absolutely nothing. The silence from those closest to these two missing children was not just noticeable, it was deafening. And in the absence of answers, the public filled that void with suspicion, rage, and an avalanche of online accusations that would make the lives of everyone connected to this case nearly unlivable. Malehya Brooks-Murray, the children's mother, the last adult confirmed to have seen Lilly and Jack before they disappeared, stopped participating in search efforts within just a few days of the initial disappearance. According to multiple accounts, some kind of confrontation or incident occurred at the search command post, after which Malehya withdrew from public view entirely. She left Lansdowne Station. She reportedly relocated to stay with family members elsewhere in Nova Scotia. She stopped giving interviews. She stopped issuing public statements. She vanished from media coverage as completely as her children had vanished from that backyard. For a mother whose two young children had just disappeared into wilderness, that absence from the public search effort was not just conspicuous. It was a kind of behavior that stops people cold. In virtually every other high-profile missing child case, parents are relentless. They are in front of cameras every single day. They are making tearful, desperate pleas. They are holding up photographs. They are doing absolutely anything and everything to keep their children's faces in front of the public eye. The absence of that behavior from Malehya generated immediate and intense suspicion. If she had nothing to hide, people demanded to know, why wasn't she doing everything humanly possible to find her children? Daniel Martell, the children's stepfather, initially did what people expected. He gave a handful of early interviews in the first days after the disappearance, appearing on camera visibly shaken, speaking about Lilly and Jack with raw emotion, urging anyone with information come forward. But as online communities began dissecting his every word, his every facial expression, his every pause and gesture searching for evidence of guilt, the pressure became suffocating. Death threats began arriving. Drones started circling the property constantly, feeding footage directly to YouTube channels hungry for content. Strangers drove slowly past the house, phones pressed against car windows, filming. Under that crushing weight of public scrutiny, Daniel too went silent and stayed that way for months. The biological father, Cody Sullivan, and his mother Belinda were brought in for formal questioning by RCMP investigators early in the case. Police examined their phone records, their financial records, their alibis with thoroughness. After that comprehensive review, they were told they were no longer considered suspects. But they had distressingly little information to offer because they hadn't actually seen Lilly and Jack in nearly 3 years. The custody arrangement following Cody and Malehya's separation had resulted in Cody losing meaningful contact with his own children. Even Belinda, who had maintained some relationship with the kids through Malehya's earlier cooperation, had been cut off approximately 18 months before the disappearance. They desperately wanted to help find their grandchildren. They simply didn't have the knowledge of the household dynamics or recent family circumstances to do it. Then in mid-June 2025, more than 6 agonizing weeks after the children disappeared, something unexpected cracked that wall of silence wide open. During a live stream discussion about the case hosted by a content creator who had been covering it closely, a name appeared in the chat section, not in a scheduled interview, not in an official statement, just a username, quietly typing in the comments section alongside hundreds of viewers. Daniel Martell. Most people watching assumed immediately it was a fake account, someone trolling, someone impersonating him for attention. But the hosts clicked through to verify the profile, and what they found stopped the stream cold. It was Daniel's actual YouTube account, created back in 2012, with a handful of old Pokemon videos still sitting there from years ago. There was absolutely no question. This was him. And what he began typing into that chat would fundamentally alter how the public understood this case, shifting suspicion, raising terrifying new possibilities, and pointing a very direct finger at people who had, until that moment, remained safely out of frame. Daniel's messages in that live stream chat were unlike anything the public had seen from him before. Gone was a composed, grief-stricken stepfather from those early media appearances. What appeared in those chat messages was a man operating at the edge of his endurance. Furious, desperate, genuinely frightened. His typing came in rapid bursts, messages stacking on top of each other, as if he couldn't get the words out fast enough, as if months of suppressed fear and frustration were finally detonating all at once. His most urgent and immediate concern was not clearing his own name, though that was clearly part of it. His most pressing fear was for Meadow, his and Malehya's 1-year-old biological daughter. Daniel claimed that Malehya had violated Child Protective Services protocols by disappearing with Meadow, without maintaining the court-mandated around-the-clock supervision that had been imposed on her. When children in a household are connected to an active missing persons investigation and authorities have concerns about the remaining children's welfare, CPS frequently mandates that an approved third party be present at all times to supervise the parents' care of those children. According to Daniel, That condition had been placed directly on Malehya, and according to Daniel, she had violated it completely by taking Meadow and vanishing. But his fear ran deeper than bureaucratic protocol violations. He wasn't just worried about paperwork. He was terrified that Meadow was being swept up into whatever had happened to her older siblings. He described his infant daughter as everything to him. He spoke about her with the raw, unguarded desperation of a father who believes his child is in danger and is utterly powerless to reach her. Losing access to Meadow while she remained with Malehya, who had allegedly broken the terms of her supervision agreement, was, in Daniel's words, unbearable. Then came the allegations that would dominate discussion of this case for weeks. Daniel stated outright that he believed Malehya's family knew exactly where Lilly and Jack were, not suspected, not theorized, knew. He claimed the children had been deliberately removed from that property, placed into a vehicle, and taken somewhere, with active assistance from relatives on Malehya's side, who were now concealing their location. He went further, claiming he had knowledge of which specific vehicle had been used and who had been behind the wheel, though he stopped short of naming names publicly, either for legal reasons or because his certainty was based on informed suspicion rather than witness fact. Daniel painted a portrait of Malehya as someone operating under the overwhelming control of her mother, Cindy. He described how on the morning of May 2nd, before everything fractured beyond repair, Malehya had told a responding police officer directly that she felt safest when she was with Daniel. That statement, made a law enforcement on the record, suggested trust, comfort, a woman who wanted her partner close. And yet within hours of Cindy arriving on the scene, everything reversed completely. Malehya left. She blocked Daniel across every platform and on every phone number. She cut all communication and disappeared with baby Meadow. Daniel's interpretation was unambiguous. This wasn't Malehya independently changing her mind. This was Cindy arriving and taking complete control, removing her daughter from a situation where the truth might surface, engineering a disappearance of a different kind. Then Daniel revealed a detail so specific, so quietly devastating in its implications, that it has haunted everyone who has followed this case closely. At some point in the days following May 2nd, Malehya returned briefly to the home she and Daniel had shared. She didn't collect her clothes. She didn't gather toiletries or furniture or any of the practical possessions someone salvages when permanently leaving a home. She came back for three things only: the children's birth certificates, school photographs of Lilly and Jack, and two small stuffed animals, beloved comfort objects that had belonged to the children. That's it. 3 categories of items. Nothing else. Birth certificates are required for travel, for enrolling a child in school somewhere new, for proving identity in an unfamiliar place. School photographs show exactly what a child looks like right now. And comfort items? You only bring those to a child if that child is somewhere waiting to receive them. Daniel's conclusion was stated without hesitation. She knew where they were. She always knew. The allegations didn't stop there. Daniel had more to say, and the further he went, the darker the picture became. He claimed that 2 of his sweaters, personal items of clothing that belonged to him alone, had gone missing from the home. He didn't see who took them. He has no direct proof of what was done with them afterward, but his belief is chilling in its specificity. He thinks those sweaters were taken deliberately, with the intention of planting them somewhere as physical evidence designed to frame him for involvement in the children's disappearance. Not just a cover-up, not just people hiding an uncomfortable truth, but an active, calculated effort to manufacture evidence against an innocent man and point the investigation in his direction while the real story remained buried. Whether that claim reflects reality or whether it is the product of a mind fractured by months of relentless public accusation and isolation is impossible to determine from the outside. But what it unquestionably reveals is a complete and total collapse of trust between Daniel and Malehya's family. He doesn't just believe they're withholding information. He believes they are actively working to destroy him. Throughout his chat messages and in the more formal interview that followed, Daniel returned again and again to one theme: cooperation. From the very first hours of the investigation, he said, he gave authorities everything they asked for and then some. He volunteered for a polygraph examination without being prompted, wanted to put his innocence on record immediately. He surrendered his cell phone without hesitation, handing investigators complete access to every message, every call, every piece of data stored on that device. He opened up his Google location history. He provided his bank records. He gave access to every social media account. He answered every question, returned every call, made himself available whenever investigators needed him. And the polygraph results, according to Daniel, confirmed what he already knew. He passed. The examiner told him directly afterward that he had done well. But what troubled Daniel far more than the test itself were the specific questions he had been asked. The examiner never asked whether Daniel had taken the children, never asked if he knew where they were, never asked whether he had helped conceal them or move them. Every single question on that polygraph was focused on one scenario only. Death. Did you kill Lilly and Jack? Do you know who killed them? Do you have knowledge of their deaths? To Daniel, that narrow focus was a revelation about where the investigation's thinking had already landed. Authorities weren't exploring abduction scenarios. They weren't seriously entertaining the possibility that these children were alive and hidden somewhere. They had, in Daniel's assessment, already concluded that Lilly and Jack were dead, and they were working backward from that assumption. He found that profoundly disturbing, not just because of what it meant for him personally, but because he genuinely believes the children are alive, and the investigation's tunnel vision may be the very thing preventing them from being found. Daniel also revealed that 7 individuals in total had been administered polygraph examinations in connection with this case. He declined to name all 7 publicly, but confirmed the list included himself and presumably Malehya, possibly Janie, and other individuals closely connected to family and the events of that morning. His most striking claim about those examinations was this. As far as he knew, not a single one of those 7 people had shown any indication of deception. Everyone passed. That detail demands careful consideration. Polygraph examinations are not admissible as evidence in Canadian courts. No judge can weigh them. No jury can hear about them. They function purely as investigative instruments, tools to help police assess credibility and direct resources. Beyond their legal limitations, polygraphs carry significant scientific limitations as well. They can be defeated by individuals who are skilled at managing their physiological responses. They can be undermined by psychological conditions that suppress the normal stress reactions a test is designed to detect. And critically, their results are entirely dependent on the precision of the questions asked. Answer truthfully to a narrowly worded question, while lie about everything surrounding it, and the machine registers nothing. If everyone who was tested genuinely passed, it either means everyone is innocent, or it means the questions weren't the right ones, and the truth is hiding somewhere in the space between what was asked and what was never thought to ask. Daniel also referenced surveillance footage from Highland Square Mall, a shopping center in the area, which he claimed shows all 5 family members together on May 1st, the day before the children were reported missing. Him, Malehya, Baby Meadow, Lilly, Jack, all 5 together, shopping, alive and present less than 24 hours before everything fell apart. He stated this footage was turned over directly to RCMP, and that a co-worker who spotted them at the mall could independently corroborate their presence. If that footage exists and shows exactly what Daniel describes, it is extraordinarily significant evidence. It would lock down the timeline. It would show the children alive, their demeanor, the family dynamic in those final hours before the disappearance. It would give investigators a concrete, before picture to work backward from. And yet, that footage has never been made public. Police have never confirmed its existence. No official statement has addressed it in any capacity. The silence surrounding what could be one of the most important pieces of evidence in this entire investigation has only deepened the public suspicion that authorities know far more than they are prepared to share. Daniel wasn't the only one stepping out of the shadows. Another voice emerged. Someone identified himself as Logan, described as either a close relative or deeply trusted friend of Daniel, a person who was physically present at the scene from the earliest moment of that first chaotic day. Logan didn't speak from a distance. He spoke as a witness. Someone who stood beside Daniel as search operations launched, who watched the dynamics unfold in real time, who heard conversations that most people following this case online never had access to. Logan's most powerful contribution was direct corroboration of one of Daniel's central claims. He stated that he personally heard Malehya tell Officer Mason, a specific RCMP officer who was on the scene early that morning, that she felt safest when she was with Daniel. Logan was relaying something told to him secondhand. He was present. He heard those words leave her mouth and land with a police officer. That makes what happened next not just suspicious, but almost incomprehensible. Within hours of making that statement to law enforcement, Malehya left Daniel completely, blocked him everywhere, refused all contact, took baby Meadow and disappeared. If someone tells police they feel safest with a specific person, what could possibly happen in the span of a few hours to make them run from that same person entirely? Logan's answer to that question pointed directly at one individual, Cindy, Malehya's mother. In Logan's telling, Cindy's arrival on the scene that day functioned like a switch being flipped. Before Cindy appeared, Malehya was present, communicative, and expressing trust in Daniel. After Cindy arrived, she became someone else entirely, withdrawn, unreachable, gone. Logan described it as watching a person be extracted from a situation, not by their own will, but by someone else's. He characterized Cindy as wielding a level of influence over her daughter that went beyond normal maternal concern, something closer to absolute control. Logan also raised pointed and deeply uncomfortable questions about how differently the two parents at the center of this case have been treated by the systems designed to protect children and deliver justice. Daniel, who stayed, who cooperated completely, who submitted to polygraphs, surrendered his devices, answered every question, and made himself permanently available to investigators, was stripped of his right to see his own infant daughter. CPS cut off his access to Meadow, despite the fact that he has never been charged with any crime, despite passing a polygraph, despite doing everything that a person with nothing to hide would do. Malehya, who fled, who stopped cooperating, who took Meadow and disappeared in violation of what Daniel claims were mandated supervision protocols, apparently retained custody of or access to that same child for significant stretches of time. To Logan, that contradiction isn't just frustrating. It is a fundamental indictment of a system that is punishing the wrong person and shielding the one who is running. Logan also spoke about the harassment and terror that he and Daniel have lived under since becoming public figures in this case. Death threats serious enough to involve police. Online communities building elaborate cases against them, posting their personal information, their addresses, encouraging strangers to target them. The psychological way to being publicly tried and convicted by the internet, while simultaneously grieving two missing children and fighting to maintain access to a living one. All of this while doing the very thing the public claims to want. Speaking, cooperating, pushing for answers. And then Logan said something that many viewers initially passed over, without fully absorbing its significance. He spoke carefully about a back entrance, a hallway, the possibility of a vehicle arriving at the property that morning in a way that would have been quiet, deliberate, invisible to the casual observer. He was guarded with his words, almost certainly for legal reasons, but the picture he painted was unmistakable. This may not have been a chaotic, impulsive act. This may have been planned, coordinated, executed with the kind of calm precision that only comes when someone knows exactly what they're doing and exactly where they're going afterward. Nearly 10 months have passed since Lilly and Jack Sullivan were last seen alive. Searches have been conducted. Polygraphs have been administered. Silence has been maintained and broken and maintained again. But the truth about what happened on the morning of May 2nd, 2025 in Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia, has not yet fully surfaced. What we know is this: 2 small children are missing. A scent trail ended at a driveway. Birth certificates were collected. Stuffed animals were gathered. And somewhere, according to the people closest to this case, someone knows exactly where Lilly and Jack are. The question is whether justice will find them first. If this case matters to you, if you believe Lilly and Jack deserve answers, subscribe to True Crime Vault right now. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a single update as this investigation continues to unfold. Like this video to push it in front of more people who are demanding the truth. And drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe these children are alive? Do you think someone is actively hiding them? This community refuses to let Lilly and Jack Sullivan be forgotten. Stay with us, because this story is far from over.